All right, I'm back. Feel good. Coming with the NBA Strangest career arcs, and I saw the front page. I forgot who was on it. It was on the Clippers. I remember that nigga being trash until just now recently. So sorry for my calm demeanor or my cool. You don't know what I mean, but I started.
NBA player probably starts off their career slow, then they improve a bit, and then they regress after the age of 30. But some have careers that don't fit the normal timeline, with a trajectory that zigzags all over the place.
He did it! The Heat win it!
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got in this situation.
It's
Is that an
definitely not
actual
what they
thing?
expected or what any of their fans
I've never
expected when
seen
they
that.
first
That's
joined the
crazy.
NBA. It makes you wonder, how do these players see their careers end up like this, for better or worse?
Yeah, Al Horford.
Today, we're taking a look at 5 NBA players with the strangest career arcs
I'm ready
you'll
to see
ever
what these
see.
niggas talking about too.
Powell, the cash cow for three. Oh, he's put it in again!
Hey guys, before we continue, I want to thank SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. The NBA season is in full swing, and has been with SeatGeek multiple times. My promo, that's 10% of the app during this video. The age of career leading his having, you saw the thumbnail. Norman Powell in his 11th season,
Norman Powell,
approaching the
that's what it
age of 33, is having by far the best season of his entire life, dropping the most points of his career, leading his team in scoring, and elevating the Miami Heat
Nigga
well
found it
above
at
their
33.
expectations, despite Tyler Hero's foot injuries. But that's not
he's in
that
the Heat.
unusual, right? There's been plenty of players who were late bloomers and peaked later in their career, but the thing is, Norman
Finally
Powell's entire
understands
NBA journey has been wild. From the beginning, Powell entered the 2015 draft as a 4-year college senior, drafted by Milwaukee but immediately traded to Toronto. In the early part of his career, his minutes were spotty, usually playing as a backup behind DeRozan and later on Kawhi. His playing time fluctuated, because there was always somebody ahead of him in the rotation. Back then, Dwayne Casey and the coaching staff didn't have their full trust in Powell, and they found it hard to fit him into a role. He's a 6'3" shooting guard, after all, and never had a single play ran for him. He'd score on his own terms, usually by cutting to the basket or sneaking by the defense because nobody paid attention to him. Defensively, with the Raptors having small guards like Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet, Powell was often tasked to guard players much bigger than him, which made it difficult. However, the die-hard Raptors fanbase wanted him to get more minutes, and it was bound to happen, eventually. Upon Kawhi Leonard's inevitable departure, the team had no choice but to play Norman Powell, and that decision was everything he yearned for.
Norman Powell with the exclamation point!
The 2021 season saw him average nearly 20 points a game and played over 30 minutes a game for the first time of his career. In theory, this was perfect for the Raptors, right? You have a guy who improved to the point where he might be a staple of this franchise for years to come. Except, there was a problem. The Raptors were bad. Powell's breakout year was overshadowed by all the injuries that decimated this team, and leading up to the trade deadline, they were in the midst of a 9-game losing streak, when rumors surfaced that they were thinking of blowing it up. I mean, that's horrible timing, during your breakout year and your team decides to blow it up. One disadvantage of being a 4-year college player is the simple fact that you're older. Powell in his breakout season was almost 28 years old at the time, so the Raptors didn't view him as a young player. In fact, they believed he's already peaked, and that was the best season he'll ever have. So when it was time for an extension, Powell got disheartened when he realized he wasn't gonna get one. He stated, "They could have paid me what they paid Gary Trent and kept the band together. I wanted to be with my boys, so yeah, let's go to the negotiation and see what's beneficial for both and see what we can do." This is what Powell said in response after he got traded at the 2021 deadline to Portland for a much younger Gary Trent Jr. And the Raptors chose to give him an extension instead of Powell, believing the 22-year-old Trent had way more potential than Powell ever had. Well, in hindsight, they were completely wrong. Nowadays, Powell is playing his best ball ever while Trent is dangerously close to falling out of the NBA, despite being 6 years younger. Heck,
That's
even in
crazy.
Portland, when Powell proved he could maintain his scoring and three-point
know
shooting
teams
at
do
an
that.
elite
You see a nigga
efficiency,
do that.
and even
I think
signing a
he's gonna get
4-year,
for 1
$90
year.
million
He just got
deal,
to that point.
the Blazers felt the same way about him as the Raptors. They felt he was a good player, but not young enough to be a part of their future as they were also rebuilding. So once again, Powell got traded at the deadline 1 year later, this time reuniting with Kawhi on the Clippers. This trade meant he would once again be coming off the bench. He was initially upset because it was obvious he was a starting caliber player at this point. In games where he did start, he usually popped off, and eventually when he did become a full-time starter once again, Powell let everyone know this is the potential he's always had, even if it came a bit later than he liked. To go from a bench warmer to a self-made starter, to then traded twice due to not being in his team's future plans, to then going back to the bench on the Clippers, and then proving once again he deserves to start, that is essentially the summary of Powell's career. He's always had to prove he deserves to be out there, and what better way to do this than leading a discombobulated Miami Heat franchise that nobody thought would be this good. Yet he's playing the best ball of his career. Al Horford. It seems like Horford has been an old man for the last decade, and pretty much everything about his game is viewed positively these days. Boston loved him for his defense and versatility, and even at an older age, he provides so many intangibles that couldn't be measured in the box score. But it was only in the latter half of his career when Horford's game got recognized on the national stage. For the first 9 years of his career, Horford got drafted 3rd overall to the Atlanta Hawks, in what feels like a lifetime ago. He was a very different player back then. Despite making some all-star teams, I feel like most folks completely forgot his time there. Early on, he suffered 2 major injuries on both his left and right pectoral muscles, both of which needed season-ending surgery. The second one was a complete rupture that halted the best year of his career. Structurally, there weren't any permanent consequences from those injuries, but it had a psychological effect. After recovering, Horford became a much less physical player. Even his rebounding numbers saw a significant drop due to him being more cautious and throwing around his body less often. Horford even admitted the surgeries impacted his mental, because he was scared of re-injuring himself. This leads us to the 2015 playoffs. The Atlanta Hawks surprisingly won 60 games that year and captured the first seed of the East, with some calling them the Spurs of the East, due to their balanced scoring and sharing the ball amongst everyone. But when the playoffs began, Al Horford got exposed. In the conference finals, he averaged fewer than 5 rebounds a game and got absolutely destroyed on the boards by Tristan Thompson. Then, a year later, the same happened again, with Horford averaging 3 rebounds a game this time, as the Hawks got swept in back-to-back years. The fans were perplexed at how their all-star center became this soft and got manhandled like this. Those 2 series against the Cavs single-handedly made the Hawks question his value, to the point where they were willing to let him walk for nothing. Yet when he arrived to Boston, his career did a 180, and it made folks realize he was a far more skilled player than we thought. Horford attempted more threes in his first 2 years in Boston than the 9 seasons in Atlanta combined. He even shot over 40% from 3 in 3 different seasons in Boston, which the Hawks didn't even know he could do. His passing, however, was a skill they knew he was good at, but didn't let him take advantage of it often. And defensively, the dude was defending prime Giannis despite being in his late 30s.
Goes to his left, spins back in and blocked by Horford.
Defense is usually the first thing to regress as you age, but Horford became a better defender as he got older. All the years of frustration that Hawks fans had became completely buried under his newfound success in Boston. Perhaps it's because Horford was never meant to be the first or second option, and instead found out he's way better at doing everything else and filling in the holes this young team needed. Andrew Wiggins.
First option.
Wiggins was never a bust, per se, but being labeled a LeBron James plus Kobe Bryant hybrid before the draft, that's basically impossible to live up to. With that said, he really did underachieve in his first 5 years in Minnesota. Instead of being this all-around dominant athlete, he funneled all of his talent into one skill: mediocre mid-range shooting. Around the time Wiggins entered the league was also the same time where analytics basically concluded that taking contested mid-range shots is not good basketball, unless you're like Kevin Durant or someone who's otherworldly at hitting them. The thing is, Wiggins spent so much time in Minnesota trying to be the man, trying to live up to the idea of who he's supposed to be, to the point where he neglected every other part of the game. But when he got traded to the Warriors, it was the perfect scenario for him to reinvigorate his career. They're really good at doing that. We've seen players like Gary Payton II and Sean Livingston revive their careers simply by filling a niche the Warriors desired. So in the span of a single offseason, Wiggins went from a shot-chucking black hole to arguably the Warriors' best role player. For the first time ever, he tapped into his enormous pool of athleticism and used it in other ways, like playing defense and crashing the glass. Plus, he stopped trying to be Kobe and became comfortable standing in the corner to shoot threes instead. In his 2022 playoff run, he averaged 2.5 offensive boards a game and held Jason Tatum to the worst series he's had in a long time.
Tatum drives on Wiggins, stops, and a travel. Andrew Wiggins' defense has been sensational.
Imagine being the young superstar of a franchise, yet you get locked down by Andrew Wiggins, a guy who was considered a bad defender for most of his career. Wiggins' career trajectory is unique because when a player who everyone prematurely labels a superstar ends up not living up to it, it's hard for them to transition to another role. It could be due to ego or not having the skill to adapt, like Jabari Parker, his draft mate, who fell out of the NBA at the age of 26. But Wiggins not only transitioned successfully, but he had his first ever All-Star nomination on the Warriors. More impressively, he joined the Miami Heat and brought his talent to South Beach with him. Brook Lopez. I like to view Lopez and Horford as two centers with similar career paths. By that, I mean both of them are more recognized in their older years, but that's about the extent of the similarity. For Lopez, what he was known to be good at in Milwaukee was the complete opposite of what he was known for in Brooklyn. On the Nets, the dude was a burly 7-footer with great footwork and a smooth touch in the paint. He didn't shoot threes, he was a poor defender, mostly due to lack of effort, and he suffered 2 serious foot injuries, the big man's kryptonite, and it made us question if he'd ever get healthy. However, every single one of these negatives I mentioned vanished the moment he arrived in Milwaukee. He became an All-NBA defender, a 3-point specialist, and miraculously, his foot problems became a thing of the past. While it was evident by his final year in Brooklyn that he can indeed shoot threes, he went from literally shooting 0 a game to about 4 to 5 in Milwaukee, and nearly won Defensive Player of the Year in 2023 at the age of 34. It's just, since he was the main guy in Brooklyn, they didn't want him flanking out to the perimeter to shoot threes. It wasn't in the game plan to do that. However, in a changing NBA landscape where big men were evolving to do more than just post up, Lopez only had one choice: adapt or get left behind. He adapted.
Like Steve Kerr, like bro, like Curry, like Kerr, Steve Kerr, bro, like bro. All I had to do is play Kuminga, bro. Get that nigga his 30 minutes. I promise you that nigga averaging 22 off at least 40% from the field. 44% from the field. And not at least like 35 from the 3.
Compared to other traditional post-up bigs like Al Jefferson, for example, he wasn't able to adapt and fell out of the league pretty quickly after he lost his touch. Lopez set the example and led the charge to become the ideal modern-day center who fit perfectly alongside Giannis. Lopez's career arc can best be described as a disrespected center with an antiquated skill set when he came in, to the prime example that every team wants their big man to model after. Every team wants their center to be like Lopez now, whereas before, it wasn't like that. PJ Tucker. There's no career that's remotely comparable to PJ Tucker's. Imagine being a second-round pick, working your butt off to secure a 2-year contract, and then playing just 17 games in the NBA before moving overseas. Tucker's early days in the NBA have been completely forgotten because it was non-existent. Nobody thought he had a shot at making it because his skill set made no sense. Dude was a thick 6'5", a great rebounder, but barely had any skills to be a guard. Most of his points were scored very close to the basket in college, but in the NBA, there's no shot he can do that over real centers. So, as expected, nobody knew what to do with him or how he could fit onto a roster. After 17 games, Tucker spent 5 years overseas. Funny enough, according to Tucker, he actually had several NBA teams reach out to him over that span and try to invite him for workouts. But he was doing very well in Europe and was even the go-to scorer for his teams. He didn't want to leave. NBA teams observed him from a distance and came to the conclusion that he did have NBA-level talent. Tucker, however, made it clear that the only way he'd return was, quote, "If I was going to come back, it would be to a situation where I could contribute and work my way into a position where I could play." He didn't want to return just to warm the bench, he wanted real minutes. It wasn't until the age of 27 when Tucker found the perfect chance to return. In the summer of 2012, the Phoenix Suns reached out and promised him a significant role. It was enough to convince him to leave Europe and return to the NBA because that's what he desired: consistent, real minutes on an NBA roster. Not garbage time or any crap like that. And straight out of the gates, Tucker contributed and quickly solidified his place as a starter. Back then, I remember folks were surprised that this guy came out of nowhere. Nobody knew who he was, some even thought he was a 27-year-old rookie or something. But he didn't have the vibe of a rookie. Tucker personified a battle-tested veteran, a full-grown man who already knew the ins and outs of the game, and over the years, he fulfilled a niche that few players of his size can. The Suns and other teams were attracted to his ability to guard 3 or 4 different positions, along with his rugged rebounding and being able to pop out and hit threes in a pinch. Tucker provided several intangibles compacted into one player, and most importantly, everyone loved his toughness. Whether it's the Milwaukee Bucks or Houston Rockets or Philadelphia 76ers, Tucker always got 25 to 30 minutes a game despite not scoring much. Yet he wasn't just out there doing cardio either like Tony Snell. You could feel Tucker's impact every minute he's in the game, even if he isn't scoring. Tucker's career arc is one of a kind. It's rare for a player to fall out of the league so early, then find his way back 5 years later, and then play 12 more years after that. It's like, did the Raptors misjudge his talent from the beginning? Or was his game too far ahead of his time? If he got drafted in 2013 instead of 2006, would he have found a home in the NBA much sooner? It's impressive he remained in the NBA until nearly 40 years old, and even more impressive for a second-round pick who nobody thought would get a second chance in the NBA. Anyway, that's all folks. Those were 5 of the strangest career arcs of all time, with each player doing it in a unique way that goes against the normal.
Well, honestly, I think Norman Powell probably had the best one out of all of them. Because he came back, he started going crazy. I'm like, oh, it was you. Andrew Wiggins did good. Curse with my Warriors. Give my nigga Curry that 4th ring. I always appreciate you for that, Andrew Wiggins. That's why I will always respect you, nigga. Brook Lopez, I remember using him on 2K when I'm using the Bucks a couple years ago. But that's about it. Goodbye, y'all.